Welcome to Fox Valley Today. I'm your host, Ann Vickery. Joining me today, kind of an old friend to many people in Kendall County, Wally Hamlin. Wally is a licensed clinical professional counselor, has been involved with neighborhood counseling services out of Montgomery for how many years, Wally?
Well, since 1986.
1986.
Yeah, part-time.
And Wally at one time was the director of the Kendall County Health Department, and so we kind of go back a number of years. And Wally, thanks. And you're getting ready to kind of semi-retire to a point?
Yes, it's more like a transition period, moving from one phase of my career to another.
Yeah, well, that, you know, and good luck on that transition, because it sometimes retirement can be tough.
Yes.
It's a change. It really is.
Yes.
You know, we were talking earlier off camera. You said, I asked you how many years you had been in counseling, and you said 45 years. You've heard it all.
All. And you know, Ann, if I've been able to give even a tenth of what I've received from all of that opportunity and experience, I really would feel successful, because God's put so many people in my life over the years that have taught me so many lessons of love, how to be a better man, a better person.
Tolerance.
Tolerance, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, Wally, as we kind of go into this holiday season, we're starting, you know, obviously day after tomorrow is Thanksgiving, starting into the Christmas season, the Christmas carols, the holiday decorations, the shopping, or in some cases for some people, not such a happy time at all.
Yes.
And I mean, I have friends that love it. I have friends and family who absolutely just don't look forward to the holidays at all. How do people deal with that? I mean, what should you be doing if you're one of those people? And I don't like to say bah humbug, but there's all kinds of reasons people aren't happy about the holidays.
Yes.
Could be family stresses, could be lack of money, could be the first year of being without a spouse or a child or a parent. Give us some advice on how to handle some of that.
Well, I think a lot of it is about of what we expect. If we're looking outside of ourselves and expecting to have this glorious holiday that the movies tell us that we should have, the television tells us that we should have, all of these expensive gifts that are being touted as presents for others, if we're looking and expecting to be able to measure up to those standards, we're going to be very disappointed. If we're looking to find ways where we can give, even when we're feeling lonely and depressed, if we're looking for ways that we can give of ourselves, that I think that getting out of ourselves will make the experience more meaningful.
Right.
Maybe not more joyful, but at least more meaningful for us.
Now, do you think people have these feelings about holidays because they are kind of a product of maybe how they were brought up, or even, I mean, I'm not trying to get too deep into it, but you know, I can't tell you that holidays at where I grew up were all that great. I mean, there was a lot of kids, there was not much money. My mother, in fact, hated the holidays. It was nothing but just a lot of work and stress for her. I got to tell you, it's kind of passed off on me. I don't have the financial problems my parents had, but I'm not a real big holiday person.
Well, I agree with that premise that how we grow up and what we experience as children in the holidays has really a powerful impact on how we manage the holidays now as adults, because we're either wanting to recreate what we experienced if it was a good experience, or compensate and make it better if it was not. And overcompensation can quickly lead us in the wrong direction.
That's a good point. What about people who come together as families and there's been a lot of stress? There's been a big disagreement. There's just never been a good relationship. How do you think people should deal with that? Should they not show up? What should they do?
I think that it gets to where is our purpose for the holidays? What meaning is it to have for us? For me, in celebrating the birth of Jesus, if my focus is on that, that leads me to focus on love and finding ways that even though I'm angry with you, and I'm not, Ann, but even
Well,
if
I'm glad to hear
if
that
I can
today,
find
Wally.
ways where I can enjoy and love you,
Uh-huh.
to focus on that rather than on whatever resentment I might hold toward you, because resentments will eat us up. The holder of resentments is always being self-destructive.
Yeah, and I mean, it can lead to a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, and I certainly appreciate your deep religious feelings. And I mean, I understand where you're coming from. However, everybody doesn't share that.
Correct.
I have said to one member of my family who has had some issues with somebody else, I said, I think it's just a time where you make a bigger, wider circle, kind of avoid, be polite, be kind, pass the potatoes, don't throw them.
Yes, yes.
But, I think sometimes you just have to walk around it. I mean, why should you punish yourself by staying home because you're mad at somebody else?
It doesn't help.
No.
It hurts.
Yeah, it does.
It hurts.
And again, Christmas time is a time sometimes for people to re-experience the incredible loss that they might have had this year by the loss of a spouse, a child, a parent. Wally, you're a guy who suffered an incredible loss several years ago, and both of your parents were killed at one time in an automobile accident by a drunk driver. Let's talk a little bit about loss at the holidays, and maybe a little bit about your own experience.
Loss is never an easy thing to deal with, but when it is a traumatic loss, which is the case in our family, in my experience, where it is very sudden, where you have parents going from going out dancing every week and walking every day a couple of miles to being gone, is a very difficult thing to contend with. And that experience alone, that trauma, now we know more about how trauma impacts people, but that trauma is literally life-changing. Nothing is ever the same after that. For instance, you talk about the holidays. They're totally different when you have two key people in your life who are no longer able to participate in that experience.
Right. Did you, and as we talked about, it was 17 years ago. What do you think was it the first 2 months, 6 months, year? How long did it really take you to process all of that?
Oh, a long time. I still think about it every holiday, for example.
Right.
But to your question, I think that probably it was maybe 18 months to even 2 years, because it was after all of the initial, I'll call it excitement, and I don't mean that in a positive way,
Well,
but after
yeah.
that initial impact
Right.
was behind us, that the loss still is there for us. And the desire to want to do something about it, what can you do about that? There are things to be done, for instance, finding ways of solving the problem of people driving while they're intoxicated.
Yeah, right.
It's a positive way of dealing with that situation.
How did you ever get past, and I mean, I think that's always a question that I would ask any counselor that because I think we all fear of being judged. How do you, as a counselor, how have you gotten through doing so much stuff, working with so many problems, so many issues, so many maybe delicate and awful things, and not being judgmental?
That is absolute key. And I guess, first of all, we all need supportive people in our lives, people that we can trust, that we can share with. And so turning to those people to talk through situations like that are really important, and to check inside of ourselves and to share that honestly with others. When we're feeling angry, when we're feeling resentful, when someone comes into a counselor's office, in this case into my office, and triggers a past memory that is a similar situation in my own life, being able to have someone that I can seek out and talk it through with is extraordinarily helpful. It really is. So.
Yeah, and there was an HBO series on several years ago, had to do with a counselor.
Yes.
And I forget what the name of it was, but in that series, he actually went, after he would deal with so many people, he ended up sitting down and talking to another psychiatrist or counselor
Oh, yes.
that would help him deal with all of the stresses of his own personal job of listening to people like me.
Absolutely, and you know, for many years I have done so. In fact, in my training way back, um, uh, we were trained that it's important for us to do that. So we needed, as part of the training, to experience what it was like to be a client of a therapist, but also encouraged ongoing, and I have throughout my whole career, all 45 years of it, known other professionals that I would seek
Right.
out and be in therapy myself.
So it's just kind of your way, or do you, as you take in all of these terrible things of being able to download the very, you're not really talking about the counselor or about the people you're counseling, but you're
No.
talking to that counselor about how you're dealing with it. Am I doing the right thing by talking to them, or how do you?
Exactly, the issues that it triggers in my own life,
Right, that's
that I need to attend to.
right.
And those are the things that would be important for any therapist that people might want to think about. That, in fact, when they're choosing a therapist, that whole issue of do you believe that you want me to be a better person than you just because I'm a therapist, or am I just as human as you and subject to the same vulnerabilities, yet have found ways of working them through and can help you work them through.
How, you just kind of brought up something interesting to me. How does a person go about knowing that the therapist that they've decided to go to, because they've got issues that they just don't want to trust other people with, how do people know that it's a good match?
Oh, really good point. I think, first of all, you need to do some research into who you're choosing. If you have that option, and hopefully the neighborhood counseling will provide that option and encourage people to pick the right person to be helpful to them. I think when we go, we need to first begin to learn to trust ourselves and sense if there's a chemistry or not between myself and you as my therapist, and also I think a lot of it has to do with, do I know people who have also seen this person as a therapist, and what do they say about him? So a lot has to do with word of mouth and reputation. I'm not sure that answered your question completely.
No, but I just kind of wondered, because I think that people, people can go to, there's probably, like all kinds of different professions. There's good guys. I mean, there's good therapists, and there's ones that probably aren't so good.
Yes.
They could give everybody a bad name. You have a bad experience, you're like, oh, why did I do that?
Exactly, and there's been lots of research and studies on this very question that you're asking, how to choose the best therapist for you. Some say, therapists are taught don't have if you have live plants in your office, make sure that they look healthy. Because those subtle
funny.
messages, if you walk into a therapist's office and the plants are all wilted and drying out.
The ferns are all falling apart. Yeah, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Make sure the plants are healthy.
I don't know
Yes,
what
sir.
that says if they're artificial plants,
Yeah,
but
that would probably be what I do, because I'm a lousy plant keeper. In your experience, what do you think has been some of the most difficult issues you've ever had to deal with?
a loss of children, people who are grieving because a child has died. By far the most difficult. It touches everything inside of me.
Yeah.
Most of my practice for these 45 years has been focused on families and children and how to help people get along better, and it's
Reconciliation of family members.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But one dies, when a child dies, it's a very difficult,
Right.
very difficult.
Well, I've always said that about when people have a pet. It's like a kid. Everybody loves that dog is the common thing in the house that everybody loves. And it's like the child. Everybody loves that child. Parent, father, mother. There's no You can't measure it. It's just everybody loves that kid, and I just, I can't imagine what has to be.
It's very
know.
difficult.
Yeah, and
very
every night when I go to bed, I thank God for. Sometimes I call them my 3 miserable kids, depending what kind of day I've had.
Yes.
But yes. But the fact that they're all healthy.
Yes.
You know what? That every one of them nobody called today and said, "Mom, I got some really bad news."
Mm-hmm.
I am just so thankful for all of that, and I can't imagine what it would be like to lose a child. And yet I've known so many who have.
I know.
So every day we're blessed that we
Yes.
stay healthy and our kids are healthy
Isn't
and our
that
grandchildren.
the case?
We got to take a little bit of a break, Wally. We're going to
Sure.
come back. We're going to talk a little bit more. Stick with us. We'll be right back with Wally Hamlin.
Thank you.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that! That's disgusting! Oh, poop already! You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
Maybe a hand with that?
Oh, thank you. Did you see anyone's broccoli?
You moved this?
Thanks for helping us.
No problem.
This You're welcome.
We'd do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
Your son wants to get a cat,
I'll really take care of it.
but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to Fox Valley Today. I'm here with Wally Hamlin, who is a licensed professional clinical counselor, has been in their area, Montgomery, Kendall County, practically. Did you grow up around here?
Just about. I
you?
did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of thought that you did. But another
If
issue.
I'm grown up.
Yeah,
I-
are we
Still
grown
working
up
on
yet?
that one.
Right. I get it. One of the other things, Wally, I wanted to ask 2 things. One, what do you think some of the biggest issues are with families today in troubled times?
I think the competition for time, like never before, and over these 45 years I've seen this evolution. I'll give you an example from taking walks in the community and seeing the parks and the playgrounds and the baseball fields with people active on them, to now it's rare if I see anyone using those, because there's so many demands on people's times, from little ones all the way up through senior citizens. There's something that every night of the week, every bit of spare time can be consumed
Right.
with some sort of busyness.
Right, and they can be at the park district, but they're on a soccer field, they're on a baseball team, they're on it's just a
Exactly.
constant. Yeah, they're just constantly busy.
And even
There's
those are a little better than the other problem. I see a growing problem with young people, particularly young people, becoming addicted to video game playing. and particularly violent video game playing.
Do you think there is a direct result between the violence that, and I mean, I don't know that anybody has ever said this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they've ever made the connection to some of these mass shootings, these mass killings, to people playing video games. It doesn't appear that some of these guys that are doing these things have been been gamers. I don't know, but I think it does have to lead to a certain kind of shock-proof head where kids aren't as shocked, because every day as they're playing video games, they're blowing people's heads off.
Yeah, I really don't have evidence, but I have anecdotal evidence from my practice and the people that I see and the families there, where it's not unusual at all to have violent family arguments simply by attempting to have a child stop a video game and come to dinner.
Okay.
It's gotten, understand that the families I see are there. They're not necessarily a representative sample throughout the country,
Right.
but it's certainly a contributing factor. And if I'm playing a game that is particularly violent, and then I'm interrupted in that game, and I'm a child who has, even normal kids with the immaturity and the ability to deal with my impulses, I might strike out violently after that stimulation. And I think it's to me, in my practice, it's a growing problem.
It is.
that I
You do see it.
Right, I do see it. And I'm not saying that it leads to, mass killings or anything else, but perhaps in society, our desensitization to violence.
That's what I
I
really
see it on the movies and on the television. And used to be that violence was in a story where I heard a gunshot but didn't see somebody fall dead, to
Right.
now I can see the blood and the holes in their bodies and everything else. So it's so I'm desensitized to it.
And I don't know that I'll ever get used to it. I just finished watching a Netflix series called Narcos, which was all about the Colombian drug cartel.
Oh yes.
And it was probably, and I mean, some of it was actual footage of this. And I mean, the killings and the torture, what mankind can do to each other. I mean, it goes back as long as man has been on this earth. Believe me, this kind of behavior. But I mean, if I'm watching something like that and I think something's coming up, I'm like this. I can't watch it. I was interested in the whole political part of it and how this whole thing evolved, but I can't take.
Yes.
I can't take a violent movie or picture to this day, and I don't know. I'm not squeamish about blood, but I'm squeamish about what one person can do to the other.
And yet, on the other end of the continuum, there are many, many people who will find anything other than that boring.
Yeah,
yes.
I just can't imagine. When do you have people come in, or can I ask? I mean, I'm not asking about anybody in particular, but you think the people are afraid of this whole? Should we be afraid of this whole terrible violence that we see around us? I mean, like they always say, if you see something, say something. But how do we best mentally try to keep ourselves from not freaking out about the stuff that's going on all the time, and yet staying sensitive to it?
Yeah, that's really penetrating questions and points. I think, we see police in schools now more than ever before, and locks, and you have to speak through a speaker in order to have a receptionist let you in the building. I think that shows that, yes, there is some fear. Now, is it the realistic fear or not? Those are pretty interesting questions. I would think to some degree that it is. So is there fear? There's certainly fear. There's fear in the part of many people to allow their kids to even walk a few blocks to school anymore.
Yeah, in certain areas, yes, especially in Chicago.
Absolutely. Whereas I was growing up, of course, it was the thing to do, and we had fun walking to
Right,
school.
and you came and you walked home alone at night,
Yes.
and nobody, and yet on the same token, the world was still a much smaller place.
Yes, it was.
I mean, you knew everybody on the block, and you knew. I mean, if there was somebody weird in the neighborhood, somebody just said, "Stay away from."
Right.
Mr.
Oh, I remember
XYZ.
those
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
Sure,
Right,
sure.
and today nobody knows who to trust. Do you see, have you had to experience a lot of violence in your practice for people coming in and dealing with that?
Well, it depends on how you define violence, but yes, there is a number of people who've come out of being traumatized by violence. Usually it begins with a child being identified as the person struggling with it, but almost always it's the entire family attempting to deal with, cope with a traumatic event.
The domestic violence.
Yes.
Right. So what's next for you, Wally? You've had an interesting career, 45 years of helping people and trying to see people through some very, very difficult situations. Obviously, there are times that you see success in what you've done. I hope you've seen a lot of success.
Oh, yes.
And do people come back and talk to you about it?
Very,
come back
very
and say-
often, and sometimes in surprising situations.
Uh-huh.
I might be in a store and meet someone that will come up and share. And you know, the folks have touched my life beyond anything they've probably ever could imagine.
Right.
Really, as I said, if I was able to give even a tenth of what I've received, I would consider it successful.
Right.
It's been a powerful experience of learning how to love more effectively, to be a better man and a better person. There's literally no event that I can think of that I haven't walked with people through or experienced myself. My career, several years of it recently has been as a corporate clinical director for a company with facilities, residential facilities, treatment facilities for children and adolescents throughout the country, and going various places in the country. And even though I know there's lots of cultural differences, the basic human needs are still the same. We're hungering for relationship, for that connection with people that we can trust and that will trust us. And we're looking for the ability to share what we have and to receive what we need from other people. And it's been mind-boggling. I would never have known 45 years ago that I would have experienced anything like this.
Well, certainly you've seen the world change.
Oh gosh, yes.
From a place that was, from communities and neighborhoods and places that were trustworthy, people that you had a lot of belief in that didn't turn out to be exactly what you
Yes.
thought they were.
Yes.
You've seen it all
Yes.
at this time. So before we close, tell us a little bit about your future.
Well, now I'm devoting my professional energies to Neighborhood Counseling Associates, and I do that with a sense of real awe and wonder and reverence, really, at that opportunity to be able to be available to people and to work with people and to still help them, as I also experience more time with my grandchildren, my family, and that combination is really awesome for me.
Yeah, so you're going to continue on, but you're
Yes.
just going to do it in a little different capacity.
Yes, Neighborhood Counseling Associates is not-for-profit corporation. Fortunately, we are providing affordable services to people who need us. The key is more whether or not we believe we can be helpful to them versus any sort of
And where is this located?
All right, our main office is at 155 Boulder Hill Pass in
Okay.
Montgomery.
All right.
But what we say, our mission, so to speak, is to provide affordable and accessible care in people's neighborhoods. So we do, for instance, family sessions in people's homes. We find ways to break down those barriers of access.
Do you have people who are aging out that are still seeking out counseling? I mean, I say that with people in their 60s, 70s, people still seeking to talk.
Oh, yes, more and more.
Okay.
More and more it's become acceptable to be able to do that. And for instance, we are approved Medicare providers.
All right.
And so we do provide services to several different seniors.
Okay. Well, listen, Wally, we got to break this. If you want to listen to us more, we're going to talk a little bit more. 107.1 in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. Good luck to you, Wally.
Thank you. Take care.